So this is vlog 71, and I'm not going to read any poems today, and I hope I can just talk about different stuff without going to programming, at least in the beginning. So I decided to acquire new English words that I can encounter later in some serious books, or maybe newspapers or through news. There is this book 1100, just 1100, maybe 1100 words, Baron's book. It introduces 5 words a day, 4 days a week, during the whole year, I think. There is also the book 4,000 words. 4,000 words. It is divided into 6 books. Each book corresponds to one level. The first level is the simplest. The most difficult level is the 6th book, but most of the words in the 6th book I already know, but it is worth to recall these words, because usually reading what I read right now, I don't encounter the words that I have in my passive vocabulary. So I need these special books with the most common vocabulary that I can either recall from my memory, that I read somewhere, or what I heard somewhere, but I never pronounced it aloud before, or I just can learn new words using them at once and putting them into my active vocabulary, not the way I did when I just added all new words to my passive vocabulary. So yeah, these 2 books. In the Baron's book, I know one word in these 5 words at best. Sometimes I can't recognize any of 5 words for the day, but most of the time at least one word is quite familiar for me. So what's next? Yeah, of course I read aloud the basic vocabulary from the careers paths, and some time before I read the words for the vocabulary of the law book, and now I read the vocabulary for the career path police book, the 3rd book, which corresponds to the 3rd level, B1. So first book corresponds to the level A1, then the 2nd book goes with level A2, and the 3rd book is for level B1. Next. Yeah, and they have the texts for each lesson, or they have the vocabulary in the end of the book that contains all the words that were used in this particular book with the definition. And when I read it aloud, I can check whether I knew these particular words, at least how to pronounce them correctly. And for learning new words, I have the particular, not the strategy, but some particular observation when I meet a new word in the text. I need to learn the pronunciation of this word, and then I need to learn the meaning of this word, and I need to use this word in my active vocabulary, retelling this situation where this word was used in the original story, or maybe recording something from my experience where I can use this word. So if I have only one new word, it's kind of easy because I can check it in the some Oxford dictionary and check the pronunciation and then the definition for this word in English. Then I can move to the Yandex dictionary and find the most appropriate Russian translation according to this English definition. Yeah, and of course I can use this word in my own speech. But if I have a dozen of these words or more than several dozens, it's really difficult to do all this procedure for each word. It takes lots of time, so I decided to do this in several separate steps or stages. So first I can go through the collection of these words, read aloud as much as I can read. Then with the second step I can check the pronunciation of the most difficult or unknown words in the Oxford dictionary, and I can learn its pronunciation. And then as the last step I can go to the Russian dictionary and get the Russian equivalents for this word, and in the end finally I can use this word in some situation so that it will become the part of my active vocabulary. So and an interesting idea that I got is that if I meet a particular word only once in the text, it's not very motivating to go for this word. At least I can check that there is a particular word and it is used in the context of being an animal or some feeling or the quality of some object. But then if I find this word in the different text and I recall that this is my second time, then of course I'll go through all these steps of learning the pronunciation, or maybe I can learn the pronunciation in the first encounter, but then I need to learn the translation and to use it actively in my vocabulary. So the main thing is that there should be this first time when I encounter this word, and when I say that, wow, this is my new word, and I see it for the first time. So that the next time, it will be my second time of encountering this word. And when I meet this word for the second time, I can really try to put it into my active vocabulary. So what I was going to talk about is some simple stuff, like maybe just recalling some topics that I read in English that I wanted to recall, just to train my skills. And an interesting idea that I encountered again, that I thought up yesterday, it was about about the problems, like, for example, the problems on physics from the textbooks, or on mathematics, which are the most ordinary, I think, the most common problems, but for me they are the most useful, convenient to learn programming, to learn spoken English. And if I if I had this possibility of learning to solve problems in physics, for example, during my school days, I would have succeeded in achieving some particular level of English, because the most difficult, besides having the tutor to speak to and to start speaking in general, my most important maybe problem, most difficult task, was to create my own texts and then retell them, because it was not my feature. And even if I can create this text, I can retell it only one way. For example, I'm going to talk about some myth from ancient Greek that I listened to, and I can retell them only in one way. I can't retell the story of the myth somehow different. Of course, I can use slightly different words, phrases. I can change a little the sequence of the events, but in the end, it will be the same story. The same way I can retell the content, the plot of the movie or of the book. But with the problem-solving approach, I can learn the particular vocabulary, and then I can use it for the different problems, but they will be all in the domain of this particular vocabulary. Like, for example, I have a case with lots of details of construct, like Lego, and using this constructor, the details, I can create lots of different stuff, as much as I have the imagination. But I can imagine only in terms of these details. Like when Lego was first introduced somewhere in 1950s, it consisted only of this small kind of bricks for building different types of buildings, and Lego was introduced as the constructor for building houses, some skyscrapers, and the special schemes were added to this set of details when the user could build several different buildings according to these schemes. And only later the first Lego figures were introduced together with the other elements. But right now Lego became more specific oriented. For example, I think in the magazine 2009 I saw the Lego sets for the Avatar world. So they really created this blue Lego people, and this I don't know, these elements from which you can create some particular spaceships or kind of animal ships from this movie. And it's really cool that you can do this stuff, and it looks kind of like from the movie, but you can create only something within the domain of this movie. You can't really take these elements and create the buildings, I don't know, the sail ships, just because lots of details like the windows of the ships, they are big, clear things. They cover the cockpit where the pilot can sit, but you can't really use it somewhere else, and you can't build with them just a simple tower, for example. So this Avatar sets of Lego, as the other different sets, like the pirates or the medieval castles, they are the example of the specification when you can't really create anything else from the details that were given to you. In the same way, when we learned the topics for our English exam at school or at the university, topics like my family, my favorite music, movie, museum, I don't know, Heroes of Belarus, there were no much freedom and options what I can describe using the vocabulary that was given in this topic. So the only way was to learn this topic by heart and then kind of retell the same story with these words, or some new words that I can recall from my previous experience, but the story will be the same as the constructions that you can build will be just from the avatar or from the medieval fantasy castle or from the pirate ship. Yeah, you can improvise, but just according to the story. But if I need to solve the tasks from, as I said, mathematics or physics, then I have again the particular set of the details, the words, but I can solve millions of different tasks, and they will be quite I don't know, distinctive. For example, first I can define something from mathematics, from the coordinate system, like x-axis and y-axis and the origin, then the lines, the graphics, the quadrants, I think. Yeah, and if I talk about the geometry, I can define the shapes: circle, square, rectangle, triangle, lines, segment, and angle. Then I can define the attributes of these shapes: perimeter or circumference, area, something perpendicular or parallel, then this sine, cosine, tangent. Secant, I think, chord, segment, and sector, all the stuff, pi, radius, diameter. That's quite a number of the words to learn to understand, and then I can go with these words with different directions. For example, I can give the definitions. The diameter is the chord, yeah, that goes through the center of the circle. Then chord is the straight line that connects to any two points of the circle, of the circumference of the circle. Angle is the geometric notion which is defined like the scene, for example, between two lines that which go from one point. Then we call this point vertex, and these lines define to raise, for example, and this to raise define the sides of the angle, and this mathematical notion between two lines, if we kind of take the third line, then we put it on the first line, and then we rotate this third line around the vertex until it will come to the second line. Yeah, and this path that this third line came is the angle and other stuff. It's really cool that each notion from the geometry, from the mathematics, can be defined, because mathematics and physics are the sciences and they go with the definitions. So in contrast, when you talk about my family members or history of London, you don't define the words that you use. You can't define really a father, a mother, an apartment, because those definitions that come from the experience, and it's really difficult, and there is no real benefit to define this stuff. But in mathematics, each notion is quite unnatural to the surrounding world, and it's really abstract, and it needs its definition. And the second moment that after this I can describe the connections between all these elements. For example, I can say that if we draw the coordinate system with the origin in the point 0, 0, and then we have x-axis and y-axis, which are perpendicular, and so we have two axes, and the origin they combine. They create, they combine the coordinate system. Then we can set something like 1, the interval of the length of 1 from the origin along the x-axis, and then using the compass, with the center in the origin, we can draw a circle of the radius 1 around this origin, and we can use this circle of the radius 1 to define the sine, cosine, tangent, and other notions from the trigonometry. I don't know, trig, from the trig. So okay. We have this imagined circle. Then and the coordinate system, or maybe these two axes, divide the plane into 4 quadrants. The first one with two positive numbers, x and y are positive, and then going counterclockwise, we define the second, the third, the fourth. So in the first quadrant, just we take some random point on the arc of this circle that we drew earlier, or maybe a point on the circumference of the circle, and we connect it to the origin. So this is the radius, and it will be of the length of 1, because we drew the circle this way. Then if we create the perpendicular, I think, from this point on the circumference to the x-axis, and let's call it, let's call the origin, let's denote the point which is the origin O. Then we denote we denote this point where we to which we draw the perpendicular on the x-axis, like A. Then the point on the circumference will be called B. Then we we take the angle alpha, which is defined like BOA. It means that this angle has the vertex of the point O. Then the sine, then the cosine of this angle in the terms of this right-angled triangle OAB, then cosine of alpha is the ratio of the adjacent, the ratio of the length of the adjacent side OA to the length of the longest side of the triangle OB. Or because this triangle is right angled, then the longest side will be called the hypotenuse. So cosine is the ratio of the length of OA interval to the length of the hypotenuse OB. The same way we can define the sine. Sine is the sine of the angle alpha is the ratio of the opposite of the ratio of the length of the line opposite to the angle AB to the length of the hypotenuse AB to OB. And of course we can define something like tangent. I think it's the tangent is the ratio. The tangent of the angle is the ratio of the length of the side opposite to the angle to the side, to the length of the side adjacent to the angle, or the ratio of the sine to the cosine of this angle. And some other, not the definitions, but just maybe definitions. We can describe the angles. We can measure the angles in degrees. Like for example, the right angle has 90 degrees, or if we consider the whole x-axis, then yeah, and going from the point where the circumference crosses the positive what is ray of this x, the positive part of this x-axis, and then we kind of rotate our ray around the origin until it merges with the negative part of the x-axis. Then we can say that this ray went or rotated by 180 degrees. If we continue to rotate this ray, and then it goes counterclockwise all the way through all 4 quadrants, first, the second, the third, and the fourth, and then it merges again with the x-axis, which points in the positive direction. We can say that this ray went the full circle of 360 degrees. But there is another way to measure the angles. Then we introduce radians, and the whole yeah, I think the whole circle in this way will be pi radians. Just the half of the circle will be pi radians, and the right angle is pi over 2 radians. Well, pi is the number which defines the ratio of the length of the circumference of the circle to the length of the diameter of the circle. That's why knowing the diameter of the circle, we can calculate the circumference of the circle like pi times d, or in the terms of radius, 2 times pi times radius. And the area of the circle is calculated with the help of this pi constant as well, like pi times radius squared over 2. No, pi times radius squared, or I think in the terms of the diameter, pi times diameter squared over 4. Yes. Okay. This was just the definitions of the basic elements of the geometry for the coordinate system, and I don't even need to go any further into theorems or different stuff in trigonometry, because all this stuff is alright for me to describe, to use the vocabulary that I know, and to practice my speaking skills, which is not only the quantity of the vocabulary, but the skill, the ability to think while talking in English. And the same way I can define, as I said earlier, the different parts of the circle, like the circle itself, its area, its perimeter, and circumference, which is the set of all a circumference is the set of all points of the circle which are distant from the center of the circle by the same value of the radius. And then the perimeter is the length of this circumference, and of course the area of the circle is the area of the area which is surrounded by this circumference. And then we can draw some stuff like the radius or the diameter of the circle, other different notions like secant. I think when we have I'm not sure about this. Something about when we have a point outside of the circle, we can draw a line from this point to the first we can draw a line through this circle. So in general, this line can cross the circle in two places. The first point will be closer to the point, and the second point will be closer and further from this outside, from this point outside. And all these intervals from the point to the first crossing, from the point to the second crossing, they all have specific names. Something is called secant, but I'm not sure what is it correctly, but I can say that the line that connects two points of the circumference and which goes inside of the circle, within the circle, is called chord, and the most maybe specific chord is the diameter, which is the line that goes through the center of the circle. And if we consider the chord, and then the circumference of the circle is divided into two parts. In general, one arc of this circumference will be smaller and the other will be bigger, but if we consider the area inside of this arc plus the chord, so that we have some figure enclosed in this line, in this connected line, that this particular figure area is called segment. Segment, I think. Maybe not segment, another word. Segment. And there is another definition about the circles and in general. If we have two radiuses that go from the center at some angle. Of course, they touch the circumference, then we can go through this contour, the first radius of the arc and the second radius, and the area inside this figure inside is called a sector of the circle. An interesting thing that when we have the point outside of the circle, if we draw a line that touches the circumference in only one point, then this line is called tangent. The same way we call the tangent the ratio of the sine to the cosine. Anyway, again, an interesting fact that if we draw a radius from the center of the circle to the point where this tangent touches the circle, then this radius and this tangent create the right angle. And so this was just the definition of the simple geometric facts using very precise set of vocabulary, but this way I practiced to think at the same time with using this vocabulary. It was not just the retelling the story that goes just one way. It was lots of stories that I know logically from Russian, from mathematics, but I use my vocabulary to describe the stories, and this is the completely different feeling than when I talk the myth or the content of the book. I can go from the middle of the book to the end, or I can go through the chapters if I remember them. But here I have like independent and quite equal in the importance elements. So I can say about the coordinate system and then about circle, or I can go from the circle to the coordinate and I can describe different elements in different order. And that creates this freedom and this feeling of talking really in English than just retelling some story. And of course, the best part, if I find some problems on geometry, for example, then I can define some theorems and I can solve these problems using all this terminology, like calculating the area or the length of the particular intervals, line intervals, and so on. And it will be an absolute improvisation using the same building blocks, but solving absolutely different stories, because really there are lots of different stories that can be solved in terms of problems of physics or mathematics. And that's what I wanted to describe when I said that solving the problems in chemistry, mathematics, physics, maybe astronomy, even in programming, but talking about it in English using the limited amount of vocabulary, but putting it in different way the stuff will really create the feeling of the language. Yeah, and this is what I searched for all the time when I tried to learn English by myself, just by talking to myself, but I could not find. And really, even now, I never find this idea anywhere in the YouTube videos or in some books. This is kind of my know-how, but it's really simple. It's not know-how, but to discover this stuff, it should be some lucky moment, lucky charm, because if you don't know about this, you don't know it. But if you knew, it's so simple that you don't think about this. Another interesting option, for example, is to learn several of the most useful, the most common street signs on the road, like this white circle with the red circumference around it. And this particular sign means something, and I can define this. I can learn the definition in just the definition to understand what it means, and then I can use my this particular words or my new words to retell the idea behind this sign. And because I can go through the street and meet these different signs all the time, my brain will work on describing in English the ideas behind. It's not like think about something. Well, it's really difficult for me to think about something, but when I talk to a person, or when I can something like the problem in front of me or these street signs, I don't need to think. I just need to solve the problem that I encounter, like in the natural way, going through the street. The same way when I talk to someone, it's very kind of nature. I don't think about what to talk. We have the first line, then this someone answers me, and then he says something, and my brain creates the idea behind it. There is no tension or struggle to find a new topic. That's why it will be quite an interesting idea, because just going through the street and saying the dog is walking in the grass is not a very interesting way to use language. Although I can explain most of the stuff in English that I see in the street, the idea behind it is quite simple. I can't use the abstract something, or the even if I say the car is going by, and the car is red color, for example, I can't say much. But if I learn the basic construction of the car inside, like the engine, the automatic or mechanic, I don't know, this steering system, then I can just recall something from the stuff and just say it aloud, and this way I practice my English anyway. I practice speaking the familiar language, the familiar topics in the different conditions, because it's quite easy for me to talk to me this way in front of the camera, but if I talk to someone in the street, to some unknown person, or in the to the unfamiliar surrounding, it will be quite difficult for me for the first time, or maybe for the first several times. But then I will get used to it, and I will get used to it, and it will be much easier for me. So I need to, like they say, increase my comfort zone. Yeah, and I think I have more than 50 minutes of talking without programming, without reading my poems, and this is it for today, for video 71.